My father-in-law passed away suddenly. It's because you didn't take good care of him. My husband is gone because of you. I'm sorry. Apologizing won't bring him back. You're going to pay for this. Large drops of tears are falling out of my mother-in-law's eyes. It's such a deliberate and exaggerated act on her part. If you're really sorry, at least get down on your knees and beg for forgiveness. Yes, I'm very sorry. I kneel in the middle of the funeral home, while many people look on and whisper to each other. Then, her cell phone starts ringing.
It's me, Mom.
My husband's familiar voice came out of the speaker.
I just finished burning all the evidence. I still need to erase all the emails, and then I'm going home. I'm glad the old man is gone so easily. I can't believe it went so well. The old man and Lucy are idiots.
Hush, Daryl! My mother-in-law scurries to cover the speaker of her phone, but it's too late. I stand up and take a step toward her. They dug their own graves in front of such a large crowd. How stupid are they? Her fake tears have already dried up, and she's flustering. It's not what you think. I don't know who it was. It must be a wrong number. Oh, darn it. Her ugly true color is revealed now. I think to myself, smiling at her in panic. Now, my father-in-law and I would begin our retaliation, putting everything on the line. The story goes back some time ago. I was a housewife who was turning 40 that year. To make a little extra for the family, I worked part-time at a local supermarket in my spare time. I married my husband Daryl 10 years prior to the incident, and we had no kids. My in-laws lived a 15 minutes walk from our house. We planned to live together sometime in the future, as they were getting quite old. Daryl and my mother-in-law Carol were very kind to me when we first got married. As the years went by, they became more and more difficult to deal with. Daryl started complaining about my cooking, which he had enjoyed once those days. If I served him something he didn't like, he threw away the food without even taking a bite. He also looked for places that had not been cleaned well and scolded me. Carol came over every day to criticize me for everything. Then she looked in my refrigerator and took food home without asking me. I once asked Daryl to do something about her, but he told me to let her be as she was my family. Not only that, he even ordered me to cook for her. I had been frustrated and sad, but I had no one to rely on. My parents had already passed away when I was in university, and I had no close relatives. I had no particular qualifications and had only been working part-time since I got married. I had no confidence in my ability to live on my own if I got a divorce. There was no choice but to endure. They knew what I was thinking. Whenever I showed even the slightest hint of defiance, Daryl said,
I have no problem getting rid of you anytime.
He threatened me with a divorce. The only person who had been kind to me was my father-in-law, Morgan. He required nursing care, and I made time between my job and housework to take care of him. Carol had told me, I'm just as old as he is. It's not right to make me take care of him. It's the daughter-in-law's job, isn't it? You are part of the family, so you should at least help us. She turned her back on him and busied herself with her own things. Caring for Morgan had never been a burden for me. He enjoyed the food I cooked for him and was always humble and appreciative when I helped him with personal care. The time I spent with him was more like therapy for me, which had become an important part of my life. I enthusiastically went to him every time. Then one day, Daryl asked me to go for lunch with him. I was dubious about his invitation, which I had not received in many years, but I was thrilled. He said that Carol was watching Morgan, so I went out. It turned out to be a bad idea. I should never have gone out, no matter what Daryl said. While I was out, Morgan suddenly passed away. I was completely stunned, but there was no time to grieve. Daryl and Carol put all the blame on me.
It's because you haven't been taking good care of him.
That's right. If you had taken care of him every day, none of this would have happened.
We left him in church, but what have you been doing? How could he have died so suddenly?
How terrible! I was repeatedly scolded by them. Besides, they refused to go through the hassle of preparing for the funeral, etc., and I ended up taking care of all the formalities. On the day of the funeral, Morgan used to own a small business and volunteered in the community before, so a lot of his business connections and acquaintances gathered at the funeral home. They all expressed their regret for him, and many were in tears. I watched them as if I were dreaming. Then suddenly, Carol's phone started ringing loudly. In the quiet funeral home, it echoed uncomfortably. Carol panicked and pressed the speaker button by mistake. The ringing stopped, but now the caller's voice came out at high volume. The sound was very familiar to me. It was Daryl. He said there was a job he could not hold off and went on business trip, ignoring his father's funeral.
Hello, Mom. It's me.
Wait, Daryl,
What? I'm destroying the evidence now. It's all going well.
Hey, wait!
Lucy's not so bright. She has no idea. We will split the $200K insurance money as promised. I'm going to head back to you soon.
The family members and the attendees started demanding explanations and closing in on her. The relatives called Daryl, who was supposedly on a business trip, and asked him to come to the funeral home right away. At first, they were evasive, saying they knew nothing about it. However, the angry relatives were so fierce that they were forced to come clean about their plan. Morgan was feeling a little under the weather a few days before his death. It was only a little cold and nothing serious. The doctor even said he was going to get better as long as he ate and slept well. It was something that would heal quickly if he was well taken care of. In fact, he was getting better little by little after taking the prescribed medicines. Daryl and Carol had noticed that he was not well. Daryl lured me out so that I wouldn't have to take care of him and hoped that he would fade away. It was all for the insurance money. It was Carol who came up with the idea, and the two of them had been emailing about their plan. They planned to blame me for not taking good care of Morgan and just taking the money. Daryl used the business trip as an excuse and was actually busy burning the medications and notes I kept on Morgan's condition every day and erasing all the emails correspondences. When I finished hearing their story, I was burning with anger. Morgan was gone just because of their greed. I managed to calm myself and walked up to them. In fact, I had known the exchange between them. I looked into Daryl's phone that was left in the living room once. I honestly had no intention of doing so, but I was bothered by the non-stop beeping of incoming mail. I just wanted to pass it to him when I accidentally tapped the screen and saw the contents. To say that I was shocked was an understatement. I couldn't believe they were planning such an atrocity for money. I kept my composure and immediately consulted Morgan. After talking it over, we both agreed that there would surely come a day when they would not allow me to take care of him. We decided to hire a helper whom I knew, just in case that day came. On the days when I could not visit him, I would ask her to take over. She was supposed to visit him on the day I went out for lunch. I was told later that she did come, however. He doesn't need a helper. I would never let a stranger come into our house. She was yelled at by Carol and was turned away. She had no choice but to leave without checking on him. During the discussion with him, we came up with a few ideas. I decided to record him in case none of them worked. I grabbed the voice recorder and stood in front of Daryl and Carol. They looked away from me as if I was sore in their eyes. I had known what they were planning, but I'd been hoping it was all a joke. When I actually heard the two of them talk about it, my brain started to boil from shock and anger. They seemed to be feeling more uncomfortable rather than guilty, which infuriated me even more.
What the hell do you want?
I have a message for you from Morgan.
What message?
Ignoring the confused look on Daryl and Carol, I pressed the play button on the voice recorder. Morgan coughed a few times and then slowly begins to speak.
The fact that you are hearing this means that the plan worked out the way you wanted to. I'm sure you must be very happy with the way things turned out, but too bad for you. I've already canceled my life insurance a long time ago. You put everything on Lucy's shoulders and don't even show your faces to me. On top of that, you have been ungrateful and giving her a hard time even though she has been working so hard. I have nothing to give or leave to such horrible people.
True to his word, he had already terminated the insurance policy. No matter how many times I asked him if he was sure, he said,
"Don't worry."
He sounded somewhat forlorn and proceeded with the procedure without any hesitation. So that's that. He knew about your plan. The insurance has been cancelled for a long time now. There's no such thing as insurance money.
No way! You're lying. You just made him say those things.
Yeah, it's all your lies, isn't it? Believe it or not, it's up to you. You can contact that insurance company, but even if he kept the contract, I doubt that you will receive the money after you've spoken about the plan so much. They looked at each other in surprise. By the way, I recorded what you two said earlier. After committing such a sin, I hope you are going to tell me again that I should forgive you guys. They hung their heads down in silence, as if they had given up. I called the police, and they were taken away without resistance. I was quite busy sorting out the remaining matters of Morgan, and with the police interviews after that. Daryl and Carol had avoided criminal charges. However, their atrocity had been circulated in various circles, and they were shamed everywhere they went. Daryl was told by his boss that his presence would affect the company's reputation, and was removed from the project he had been overseeing. Although it was in the form of voluntary resignation, he was eventually fired. He has been having a hard time finding a new job because of his reputation. Carol has also been distanced from her circle of friends, and the neighbors have pressured her to move out. She has been denied a renewal of her rental agreement and has been forced to relocate. I filed for a divorce immediately after the funeral. I wasn't able to come to terms with it for a long time, but after the incident and what Morgan left with me, I finally made up my mind. There was another message from him on the voice recorder. It was addressed to me, which I did not find until after the funeral.
Dearest Lucy, thank you so much for everything you have done for me. I sincerely apologize that they have forced such a big responsibility on you to take care of me. But since I haven't been able to go out, I really look forward to spending time with you. I am blessed that such a kind person like you became part of my family. I have nothing but gratitude. I am so sorry that I could not protect you from them. You can go anywhere and live any way you want. So don't give up. I want you to choose a path that will allow you to live your life with a smile on your face.
Such was the message. It made me burst into tears. He was right. I was tired of my life, and before I knew it, I had given up. I was convinced that it was the only way. Morgan was right about choosing my way. Without Daryl, and even all alone, I could continue living. I wanted to fulfill his last wish. I immediately filed for divorce and moved out of the house. I continued to work part-time at the supermarket for the time being while looking for a full-time job. I was so anxious about my life on my own, but I now feel like I have a bright future. I'm going to start my way of life from now on.
I have been paying off my husband's debt, and my mother-in-law pushes me even further, but it was for one of my mother-in-law's plans.
You only make this much. How can you have only $30,000 in savings? My husband yelled at me and threw a wine glass against the wall. Glenn is right. Go make some money, Ashley. And my mother-in-law blames me too. I can't take it anymore. I understand. I'll leave this house. My name is Ashley. I'm a 35 years old office worker. I married my husband, Glenn, 2 years ago. I met Glenn on a blind date. He was a young, handsome man working for a big company. He was popular among women because of his looks. For some reason, he approached me aggressively. I feel at home when I'm with you, Ashley. Let's go out to dinner next time. He came on to me like that, and I was attracted to him, even though I was shy. It was my first time dating someone younger than me, but I really enjoyed dating a man who had the heart of a boy, but took the lead. And after a year of dating, he proposed to me, and we got married. Looking back, I wish I had thought about it more carefully before we got married. But I loved him so much, and I think I was too excited to get married. They said love is blind, and I guess it really is. And then we started our life together. We greeted each other's parents, had a wedding, and became husband and wife. You know I can't cook or clean, so you do all the work, okay? What? But we both work. I want you to share some of the work. I said I can't, so take it. Then, can't you at least do the laundry? No, I can't. I can't. No matter how much I told him, he stubbornly refused to do the chores. So no matter how busy I was at work, I had to come home and do everything. Plus, he complains about my chores. Come on, you know what time it is. I'm starving. Get the food ready. Now. I'm sorry. Give me a minute. I work late and often come home at around 8. But my husband doesn't do anything. He just waits for me to come home. And yet, he complains to me all the time. I'm tired from working. Why do I have to go hungry? I'm tired too. Working overtime, you know. What? What did you say? What? No, I didn't say anything. The moment I married to my husband, he became very strict with me like that. Hey Ash, put more protein on the menu, okay? I told you to have different dessert every day. He complains about the food like that. He also complains about the way I clean the house and do the laundry. I don't like the way you fold my clothes. Why can't you fold them nicer? It was like that right after we got married. After about 6 months, I got used to his attitude. At that time, I wasn't thinking about divorce. I still loved him, even though he was acting like that. I also thought he loved me. Over time, I learned to anticipate his demands, so he didn't complain too much. 2 years have passed since living like that. I thought it would be nice to have children someday soon. But then, something unexpected happened.
Ashley, can you lend me some money?
What? What's wrong? You don't have any money before payday?
No. It's not like that. It's just, I have a debt.
What? What do you mean?
Well, I failed in the margin trading of stocks.
What? Stocks? It seemed like my husband lost a lot of money on the stock market and in debt. Wait a minute. How much?
About $80,000.
$80,000? I felt dizzy and almost collapsed. I couldn't keep my mouth shut because the debt was more than I expected. Why did you get into the stock market in the first place?
Well, I heard my friend made a lot of money. I thought maybe I could do it too.
But how are you going to pay back your debt?
It's gonna be you and me.
I was completely appalled. I was going to save up for our future, Well, then first, we'll have to move.
What? No, I don't want to. I love it here,
What are you talking about? The rent is too high. We can't afford to live here with the debt. We'll have to move to a cheaper place.
What? No, we don't have to do that.
Yes, we'll have to. And we have to save money on food and...
Wait, come on, Ashley. You don't have to go that far.
We'd been living on the lap of luxury because we were both working. But now that we are in so much debt, we can't afford to live like this. When I told him that we are going to move out, he proposed.
Okay, then we can move into my parents' place. That way, we don't have to pay rent, right?
What? That's a little...
What? You don't like it? Why not? It was your idea to move, right? I'm against moving in the first place. So we can either stay here or go to my parents' house.
How can a man in debt be so stubborn? I said to myself. Fine. Then let's move in with your parents. I had no choice but to agree to live with my in-laws.
Mom, Dad, thanks for having us. Welcome back, son. And you too, Ashley.
Thank you. We appreciate your help. My in-laws welcomed us warmly. I have only met them a few times so far, so I didn't know them very well yet. I was afraid that they might bully me or hate me. As it turned out, my in-laws weren't like that at all. They treated me fairly normally, and they never complained that I had a job. They don't force me to do housework either. My mother-in-law was a full-time housewife and took the lead in the housework, which was nice because it meant less work for me. But my husband's attitude was the same as ever.
Ashley, why do you always make Mom do all the housework? You're my wife. Then you should do all the work.
That's what my husband blamed me for. At the time, my father-in-law warned him for me.
Hey, son, how dare you talk to your wife like that? Ashley always works later than you. So why don't you help her with the housework yourself?
I felt a little better when my husband was outspoken against my father-in-law, because my husband was always unreasonably angry with me. It was rare for me to see him like that. I thought living with my in-laws might be difficult for me, but it turned out to be more comfortable for me than I expected. But it didn't last long. My father-in-law became ill, and soon after he passed away. My mother-in-law, my husband, were all devastated. I couldn't believe that my father-in-law, who was so kind to me, had passed away. At the funeral, I was so sad that I couldn't stop crying. After losing my father-in-law, a new life with the three of us started. And my husband, with my father-in-law gone, was becoming more and more like he used to be.
What the hell?
No dinner yet? Again?
Hey, give me the money for this month. Come on.
My husband was demanding $1,000 from me to pay off his debts every month. As a couple, I wanted to pay off my husband's debt as soon as possible, so I let him. But still, every time I handed him the cash, I felt like I'd done something wrong, and I hated it. After about a year of living like that, my husband suddenly asked me how much money I had in savings.
So, how much money do you have in your savings?
What? Why all of a sudden?
Well, I wanted to pay off all my debts.
I see. I don't know. Wait a minute. Here. I showed him our online bank account. That's about it. Soon, he looked at me with wide eyes and got angry.
Hey, you only make this much?
How can you have only $30,000 in savings? I give you $1,000 a month, remember? I think I rather did a good job saving this amount of money.
Shut up. Don't talk back to me. I still have debt.
So go make some more. Then my husband yelled at me and threw a wine glass against the wall. The glass hit the wall and broke into pieces. With the wine, the floor was wet and stained. I was stunned. Then my mother-in-law opened her mouth. Glenn is right. Go make more money, Ashley. My mother-in-law also accused me. I couldn't believe it. That even my mother-in-law would take my husband's side and say such a thing to me. Glenn, it's not safe if you get hurt. So go out and have dinner until we finish cleaning, my mother-in-law said, and gave my husband a $100 bill.
Okay. Thanks, Mom. I shall do so.
My husband said that and walked out. Maybe this is it. This is my limit. I can't stay in this place anymore. Just when I thought that, my mother-in-law came up to me. What in the world is she going to say to me? Ashley, are you okay? Are you hurt? I'm sorry. Such a hopeless son. My mother-in-law looked very sad. Ashley, you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't let Glenn take your money away like that. You should run away from this. I'll help you, okay? What? But what about you? I'm going into nursing home. I'll have my pension and my husband's inheritance. So, you don't have to worry about me, okay? Just think about your future, Ashley. I burst into tears, knowing that my mother-in-law was on my side. And I knew she was right. I had to protect myself. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, I will leave this house. Then we both put away the glasses that my husband had broken and cleaned the floor. After a while, my husband came home tipsy. The next day, I saw him off to work and packed my things. I called the company and asked for a half day off from work. Then I booked a business hotel and decided to stay there for a couple of nights for the time being. Thank you for everything. I never forget your kindness. No. It's okay, Ashley. You take care. I said goodbye to my mother-in-law and left my in-laws' house. When I was relaxing at the hotel, I received a call from my husband. Hey, where are you? Come home and cook dinner. It's past 8 o'clock. I replied with a sigh. I'm sorry, but I'm not going back there. Huh? What are you talking about? I'm saying that you and I are getting a divorce. Huh? Divorce? You gotta be kidding me. I won't allow you to do that. I don't care if you allow me or not. I know you are having an affair. With my word, my husband sounds upset. What? I'm having an affair? Do you have any proof? After you broke the glass yesterday and left the house, your mother showed me pictures to prove it. She saw you walking with a woman not too long ago. And so, she hired a detective to investigate. They got the results just a few days ago. So I can get a divorce. And you're the one to blame. I'm going to charge you more alimony than the $1,000 a month I've been giving you. What the hell? I mean, the $1,000 you were getting from me, you were using it for your lover, right? That's why you always wanted cash, didn't you? But now we have all the evidence. You can't get away with it. We'll have to go through a lawyer. Wait a minute. I ignored my husband's words and hung up the phone. After that, my husband and I were able to get a divorce. Alimony was paid, both by my husband and his lover. My mother-in-law cut off the relationship with him and went into a nursing home. My ex-husband lost his home and his family. He now spends his days renting a shabby apartment and paying his debts and alimony. I heard he was dumped by his girlfriend because he was living like that. I think he deserves it. I, on the other hand, am living in a condo, and I'm very comfortable with my life. My job is going great. I visit my ex-mother-in-law once in a while. She's the one who helped me leave my husband. She was there for me when I was going through a tough time, and I am grateful for that. I'm sure that my ex-mother-in-law must be feeling lonely somewhere in her heart now that she's separated from her son. I will continue to visit her regularly, and I will never forget my gratitude toward her. And I will continue to live my life as I am. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel if you like. See you in the next video.
My mother-in-law and sister-in-law wouldn't let me attend my father-in-law's funeral, who I've been a caregiver. Then my husband did something unexpected.
My mother-in-law and sister-in-law got furious at me, even though I was the one who took sole responsibility for my father-in-law's care. You were not part of this family. You don't get a seat at the funeral. You are a housekeeper, so work behind the scenes. And they continue with grins on their faces. Don't worry, we'll pretend we took care of Dad. That way, you don't have to worry about being accused for your shabby work as a caregiver. I can't believe it. What they said and did leave me speechless. My name is Alyssa. I'm 46 years old. I work part-time as a professional caregiver. My husband, Calvin, is an IT engineer. We have a son, but he left home when he got a job. We had just passed a minor milestone in raising our child, and now we were ready to take a breather. At that time, our family was shaken by a terrible event. My father-in-law had a stroke and needed nursing care. I can't take care of him. My legs and back are too weak, you know? My mother-in-law called my house to ask for help. My husband has a sister, Doris, who lives alone. If my mother-in-law can't take care of him, it should be either my sister-in-law or us. Soon after, we had a family meeting. We have a professional caregiver in the family, so it's a done deal, isn't it? My sister-in-law singled me out with a mean look on her face. I knew it would come to that. But that doesn't mean I feel comfortable discussing my job and taking care of my family members on the same level. On the other hand, there were things I felt from the perspective of a caregiver. In my work, I have seen many families crumble between debts of gratitude to their parents and the hardships of caring for them. My father-in-law and I are not related by blood. I thought I might be able to separate the two in a way that blood relatives can't. Calvin, how about you? How do you feel about your father? I asked my husband right then and there, and he answered immediately.
I owe my father everything for raising me to be a man.
That's when I came to terms with my feelings. Then I will take care of him. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law replied with big smiles on their faces.
Oh, really? Thanks.
I felt sadness and anger at the way they spoke to me, as if it was a matter of course. And so my life as caregiver began. Well, as is common in any home, things happen day by day. Bathing, toileting, and midnight bell. I quit my job because I found it too difficult to take care of my father-in-law while working part-time. However, if I took on all the work alone, I would become exhausted and collapse sooner or later. So, I left him to daycare for a certain amount of time and tried to keep my mental health in check. But my mother-in-law and sister-in-law complained about the way I was taking care of him.
It was so lazy to leave the care of my family to others.
Doesn't it hurt you to ask someone else to take care of your family? My mother-in-law and sister-in-law have forced me to be the sole caregiver. No, I will be crushed if I keep doing this alone. I try to argue with them, but they must think I can afford it since I quit my job.
In the eyes of the world, leaving him to another caregiver, even just for a few hours, would be something shameful. You heartless bitch.
Yeah, you'll go to hell if you treat your family like that. I couldn't take any more of their invective. How can you say such a thing after forcing me to do everything?
I have a limp, remember?
And I am busy with work, so I can't. Both my mother-in-law and sister-in-law kept repeating their reasons over and over again. They never take care of my father-in-law, who is their husband and father. They were always like this, so they wouldn't even pay for the extra cost that I asked for. And in the end, while I was taking care of my father-in-law, I never heard a word of thanks from either of them. But that didn't mean that all my hard work went unrewarded.
Alyssa, thank you for watching my dad every day. I really appreciate that.
My husband thanked me for everything. On his days off, he would take over the work for me. And sometimes he would even bring me my favorite sweets as a treat. These little rewards boosted my energy many times over. And so, my caregiving life continued for about 2 years. And the day came, as it always does. The day of farewell, of course, brings a lot of memories. Once he was gone, all the good things about my father-in-law came back to me, and I cried. On the other hand, I also felt relieved. What I can say out loud and what I can't say out loud are all coming together. It was with these mixed feelings that I attended the farewell ceremony. But what surprised me was the attitude of my mother-in-law and sister-in-law to the relatives who gathered there. They were talking about the last days of my father-in-law's life to everyone.
Yeah, it was hard work. Take care of him at home, you know.
But my husband was happy, even on his sickbed. They would talk things like that, as if they took care of my father-in-law. Thank you for taking care of him until the end. In response, the relatives thanked my mother-in-law and sister-in-law in such a way. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. At that moment, my mother-in-law walked toward me. It was a white marble floor, so the sound of her walking was very loud. My mother-in-law stopped in front of me and said, "What are you doing here?" "Wearing black." She almost grabbed me. "What? I'm here to say goodbye to him, of course." I tried to continue, but my mother-in-law shouted at me, "You don't get a seat at the funeral." And my sister-in-law, who came from behind my mother-in-law, continued, "Yeah, work behind the scenes, housekeeper. You are not supposed to be in the public eye, for God's sake." And she tried to push my shoulders. They both grinned at me and continued, "Don't worry. We'll pretend we took care of Dad. That way, you don't have to worry about being accused for your shabby work as a caregiver." What? I'm stunned by their words. "Because I'm too embarrassed to say that you left most of the work to the hired caregiver, right? So, don't worry. I'll pretend you weren't in charge of any of the work." They both burst into ugly laughter. I don't know what to do. I don't know anything anymore. I was almost shaking with despair and hopelessness. Then, my husband gently tapped me on the shoulder. "Don't worry, Alyssa. I'll take care of it." I turned and looked at him. I think I was crying without knowing. I could see him nodding his head over and over again. It came time for the funeral to begin. I kept my distance from my mother-in-law and stood beside the ushers at the entrance. The ceremony director greeted the guests. "The order of the ceremony will be changed a little." His voice echoed throughout the hall, and there was a slight murmur in the room. "The mourner's address, which was to be given at the end of the ceremony, will now be given at the beginning of the ceremony," he said and handed the microphone to my husband. "Thank you for attending my father's funeral today." My husband began to introduce himself. "I am a son of the deceased, but I am not a chief mourner at this funeral." What? There was an uproar in the hall. "You are not a mourner?" Needless to say, the groans were filled with confusion. To my relatives, my husband is the eldest son, a true blood son. "What is he saying? What is this?" My husband continued, as if responding to their voice. "My wife was told this by my mother and sister, that my wife is not family, that she doesn't have a seat at this funeral, and she must work in the back as a housekeeper. If my wife is going to be treated that way, I'm prepared to do the same. I will not have anything to do with this family right here and right now." My husband's voice echoed through the hall, causing my mother-in-law and sister-in-law to panic. "Hey! What are you doing, Calvin?" My husband threw a cold stare at his mother and said, "Then, on what grounds did you say that my wife is not family?" The tone was harsh, and the mic howled a little. He continued, "How can you say you've been a great caregiver? You didn't even come once to check on Dad." What? It wasn't just my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. The whole place was abuzz with surprise. My wife took care of my father, alone. On top of that, my mother and sister didn't even help us financially. They just pushed their daughter-in-law to do the job. Here's the record." My husband took out his smartphone and revealed his father-in-law's caregiving notes that my husband and I had shared. The notes clearly showed how I took care of him. Alyssa did her best to change the flavor of the liquid diet each time so that the menu did not overlap. She also keeps a record of the numbers of times he defecates at night. She was concerned about my dad's constipation. My husband told everyone how I was taking care of him, reading out the notes. Now, no one believed that my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were taking care of my father-in-law. My husband took this opportunity to tell them the whole story. My wife was told by both of them that hiring another caregiver was just a way of skipping out on her responsibilities. But if she had to take care of my father all day long, she would collapse. So I made arrangements. But my mother and sister said she was slacking off and wouldn't even pay for the cost. My mother-in-law refused this explanation. Because my daughter-in-law is a professional caregiver, isn't she? And my husband immediately cut her off.
You admit what I say is true, don't you?
Well, that's... My husband continued.
You didn't do anything to take care of him, so it's easy for you to come off like a fool. My wife is not a volunteer or anything. I'm going to charge you a wage based on the hours she put in to take care of him. I want full payment.
What? My mother-in-law and sister-in-law flinched at my husband's words.
I have a limp. I couldn't.
I was busy working.
There was a chill in the air in the hall. The only ones who didn't notice were the two of them. And my husband spoke to the family members in attendance. They are the one who have no right to attend my father's funeral.
What do you think, everyone?
After a short silence, a man stood up.
If Alyssa is not family, then I am not family either.
He was the oldest man in the room. My father-in-law's brother.
Huh?
My mother-in-law gasped.
I don't want to be considered a family, or even relatives, with the two. I'd like to be family with Alyssa, who did her best to take care of my brother.
Then one of the women got up from her seat. I don't want them to think of me as a relative either. Now it's my father-in-law's niece. And one by one, relatives started to say they want to break the relationship with the two.
My mother, who is my father's wife, and my sister, who is my father's daughter, are now strangers. And my wife is my true family, not these two.
Our relatives in the audience answered my husband with applause. Thank you, Alyssa, for taking care of him till the end. It must have been very hard for you. The relatives who knew the truth now tried to comfort me.
Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you for everything.
I held my husband's hand back as he reached out to me with tears streaming down on my face. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law sobbed as they left. And so, the farewell ceremony came to an end. Schumann's Stratmalai, my father-in-law's favorite music, was played in the hall. We also put his favorite wine bottle in the coffin. I hope you are at peace now. I know it has been a tough 2 years for you two. Thank you so much for raising such a kind husband. I bowed my head once more as I said goodbye to my father-in-law. I feel like I have grown as a caregiver since I saw my father-in-law off. I went back to work as a caregiver, from part-time to full-time, and was even promoted to manager. Every day, I listened to the complaints of new caregivers and the struggles of the families of those being cared for. On the other hand, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, who were cut off from their relatives, moved far away because they couldn't stand the cold eyes of their neighbors. I probably won't see them again. My husband brought some flower seedlings to plant in the garden. Oh, bellflower? Your father used to love them. I looked up at the blue sky as I planted them. Thank you for watching till the end. Please subscribe to our channel if you like. See you in the next video.
My husband invites his mother to our trip at the last minute without asking. The trip ends like a hell.
I am used to making travel plans. So I researched the hotels and tourist spots on the internet and made reservations. However, the night before we were to leave, my husband said to me,
Oh, yeah. Mom is coming with us on this trip. Okay.
I was surprised at the suddenness of the matter. What? I thought it would just be you and me.
I told you, didn't I?
He's got a nasty way of talking to me. I felt like he was doing it on purpose to annoy me. My name is Erin. I am a 32-year-old housewife. I've been married to my husband Otis for almost a year. And even though we're still newlyweds, I'm already under lots of stress. The cause was my husband. When we were dating, my husband was kind and gave me sweet words and lots of gifts. But as soon as we got married, his attitude changed drastically. I thought my job was worthwhile and I wanted to keep it. But Otis strongly encouraged me to quit.
It must be hard for you, Erin, to manage both the housework and your job. My earnings would be enough.
But the truth, he just wanted me to stay home and complete the housework. And that's not all. He would give me detailed comments about my cleaning and cooking. It was as if he was coaching me in some kind of sport. I am exhausted by his attitude every day. If I try to talk back to him, he gets very grumpy. Just looking at his face depresses me. His stories are long and he is very persistent. So recently, I have decided not to say anything to him anymore. I often sigh loudly when he is not around. Not only that, but he has become more and more restrictive with me. I need his permission to go out with friends. When I was single, I used to meet up with friends and colleagues several times a month. It is hard for me to remember my single days when I could eat delicious food and sweets at cafes and restaurants and chat as much as I wanted. In the first place, I had to leave the city where I lived because Otis and I got married. It's only a 2-hour drive, but I can no longer see my parents and friends easily. It's a rural area with lots of greenery, but very little in the way of entertainment, to say the least. It's not convenient for shopping, and I don't know anyone. The most painful thing for me is that I don't have enough money to live every month. According to the statements I was shown when we were dating, Otis's income wasn't that bad, but he loved to drink and could not give it up. That alone is a considerable monthly expense. He also liked to gamble and would spend his weekends and holidays in the casino from morning till evening. On days when he lost a lot of money, he would take it out on me. I'm fed up with it. On top of that, Otis was quite a mama's boy. My mother-in-law often came to our house unannounced. She checks every room in the house and gives me a sarcastic look. Erin, you were not cleaning well again. My mother-in-law loves to tell me what to do, just like her son. Otis is such a mama's boy that he accepts whatever his mother says. He doesn't realize that I am having a hard time. My mother-in-law usually comes over for tea time. Then she happily spends the rest of the evening as she bullies me. After dinner, she occupies the sofa in the living room and watches TV lazily. During this time, I have to listen to her complaints, and it's a pain. After that, she finally goes home. But she can't drive, so I have to drive her home. I feel like throwing up just the fact that I have to listen to her talk about things I don't want to listen to. It was during this time that my husband suggested to go on a trip together. Did something good happen to him at work? I had no idea what was going on. Ever since I was a student, I have always loved taking day trips alone or traveling by train with friends. Being in an environment away from the daily routine, you can forget about the worries and stress of work. You can freely enjoy unfamiliar scenery and food. When I think about it, we don't even have a honeymoon because Otis, who is an indoor person, didn't want to go. So when he suggested the trip, I was excited. I hurriedly made arrangements. Or rather, I had to do it because Otis didn't seem to do anything. It's been a while since I've been on a trip, but I'm used to making travel plans. I looked up hotels and tourist spots on the internet, made reservations, and planned one thing after another. However, the night before we were to leave, Otis said to me,
"Oh, yeah. Mom's coming with us. Okay."
The suddenness of it took me by surprise. What? I thought it was just you and me.
Huh? I told you, didn't I?
He's got a nasty way of talking to me. From what I have seen so far, I get the feeling that he's doing this on purpose to get me in trouble. I said back to my husband, "Well, we're in trouble then. You know, I have already made a travel plan. It's hard to cancel and rebook now, especially since it's the popular season. Last time I checked, most of the hotels were fully booked." Otis heard that and interrupted me in a mid-sentence. He seemed to be in a bad mood and suddenly became angry.
Huh? It's your fault.
Damn it.
I shouldn't have left it to you. Just rebook or do something. Right now.
Okay. I'll try. I immediately started searching on the computer, as if my grumpy husband was rushing me. Then he pushed me further.
Hey, this is your responsibility. You have to pay for the trip. Got it?
What? Hey, that's...
Don't talk back to me. This is a done deal. And if you don't like it, I'll divorce you.
My husband said in his most boastful manner. I've seen this happen many times, and I am tired of it. I had so many things I wanted to say, but I knew that if I did, I could get into trouble again, so I didn't. As I expected, all the reservations for the hotel were already made. When I finally found some place to stay, the guest reviews were terrible. I am sure Otis and my mother-in-law will complain if I did a bad job with the booking. I thought about what to do, and then decided. Around noon on the day of the trip, my mother-in-law arrived with a large and heavy-looking travel bag. It was unusual. She didn't call me and took a cab. I thought she must have been looking forward to it. My husband, smiling and laughing, greeted her at the front door. Then I said to them, "I'd like you to go on this trip alone, please." "I'm not going." My husband was quite surprised. He thought I was going to apologize for the travel arrangements.
Hey, what the hell? What's that supposed to mean? Explain.
Erin, I've been looking forward to this. Well, I told Otis yesterday. I had to make a sudden change. I couldn't book the hotel for the three of us. Erin, you are hopeless at everything you do, aren't you?
You had all the time and you couldn't even rebook the reservation?
As I had expected, they got sarcastic toward me. So I firmly told them, I had originally made reservations for 2 people, so it should be fine. Considering the check-in time, I think you should leave by now. Huh? I'm the one who decides when to leave. Otis seems to be angry at me for expressing my opinion, which is rare for me. If you are not going, who's going to drive? Besides, who will take care of Mom? He's right. I need a lot of help, you know. I'm really tired of the attitude of these two. I guess they think I'm nothing more than a convenient housekeeper. I took a deep breath and cut them off. Otis, you can drive. Besides, I don't have a mother-in-law to take care of any longer. Otis looked at me with a blank stare. My mother-in-law, who was standing next to him, rolled her eyes and looked as if she didn't understand. They both looked dumbfounded, so I continued. To tell you the truth, our divorce has already been in process. What? Divorce? Otis was shocked and was at loss for words. But after a while, he stared at me. What? After your mistake in arranging this trip, you're lying to me? What the hell are you thinking? I kind of knew it, but you really are an idiot. Hearing that, my mother-in-law continues. Yes, a divorce? Quit the joke, Erin. My mother-in-law said with a slightly pale face. I'm sorry, but it's true. I said that clearly. In fact, Otis had threatened me with divorce many times. When he didn't like something stupid, he did. He seemed to have forgotten all about it, though. The other day, he wanted to threaten me so badly. He even filed for divorce. But I've done the paperwork too. So the divorce will be final soon. My husband's foolish plan to manipulate me has failed. He thought there was no way I could divorce him. I guess he didn't think I was capable of such a drastic thing as divorce, or even the idea of divorce. After a while, my mother-in-law said, Otis, let's leave her alone and go on our own. My mother-in-law is a sucker for luxury and fun, so I knew this would happen. And Otis seemed to agree with her. Yeah, you're right. Let's leave this idiot alone and go on a trip. Just you and me, Mom. She'll pay for everything anyway. So, let's enjoy it to the fullest. Maybe it was because he didn't have much time. Or maybe it was because he was in front of his mother. But Otis didn't show his usual overbearing attitude. Then both got into the car and drove off. I, on the other hand, was relieved. That evening, my phone started getting calls from Otis and my mother-in-law. I ignored them for a while, but they were too noisy, so I set my phone in silent. I was just busy packing up my things. When I finished packing everything, I left the house with one suitcase and my purse. It was a house I lived in, but to be honest, I don't have a single good memory of it. I felt refreshed when I stepped out of the house. The destination was my hometown. I'm going to stay with my best friend Gabby for a while. Gabby welcomed me with open arms. We cooked together and talked like we used to, and I felt very relaxed. On the other hand, Otis and his mother had a bad time on their trip. The staff at the hotel was very rude, and Otis seemed to have lost his temper. The room had a small old bathtub with a musty smell, and the water pressure in the shower was too weak. My mother-in-law, who loves spas and is very particular about what she does, was very dissatisfied with this. Dinner was not included. Otis took a wrong turn and arrived late, so all the restaurants were closed. So they had no choice but to buy food from the vending machines. The next morning, my mother-in-law was excited about the buffet, but she was disappointed to find that it was just frozen food quality. They had a lot of bad mouthing each other at the hotel, and there was a lot of fighting. On the way back, my husband hit the car in front of him because he was looking aside while driving. Although they were not seriously injured, both of them got whiplash. In addition, when the other man yelled at Otis, Otis lost his temper and retorted in his usual tone. This led to a lawyer's case. The other man's car was a brand new car and very shiny. And because it was a rare car model, he was going to have to pay a lot of money. I had no idea that a car accident would happen. But the hotel that I had rearranged without telling the two of them was... Yes, I deliberately chose a place that seemed to be of poor quality based on the reviews. By the way, the first room I booked was a luxury room with a jacuzzi with a night view. I wanted to beat them a little at the end of our relationship. I deserved it, considering the countless ways my husband and mother-in-law have treated me. They called me on my phone an unbelievable number of times when they found out I wasn't home. I had no choice but to answer my husband's call. Otis seemed to be very angry about the hotel. Whoa, was it really that old? And with such bad service? I didn't see anything wrong when I made a reservation. I just responded and didn't pay any attention to what he said. Otis's voice lacked its usual vigor. Even so, he was still trying to put words of the blame on me. But strangely enough, I was able to ignore them. After only a few days away from Otis and my mother-in-law, I was feeling much better. Reading was my hobby, and for the first time in a long time, I went to the library and purchased the books at the bookstore. The delicious home-cooked meals that my best friend Gabby and I prepared together also cheered me up. Besides, I can sleep peacefully every night. My mind is calm and I can't let most things pass me by. Gabby and my parents were also happy to see my change. As planned, I asked the Otis to pay me for all the horrible things he had said and done to me over the years. I never once did anything terrible. I was just doing what I thought was best for my stupid wife. I'll never pay you anything. At first, my husband was very stubborn and insistent. To my surprise, he even wanted to marry me again. Well, not exactly. I may consider marrying you again, depending on your attitude. He was talking in his usual spirited way. But, of course, I absolutely refused. After listening to his arguments, I opened my mouth. Well, this isn't going to work, so I'm going to apply for mediation. And I will hire a lawyer. As soon as I said that, my husband became quiet, and he showed some reluctance to comply with my request. I think that the issue of our divorce combined with the car accident must have been too much for Otis to handle. Sometime after the divorce, I was able to return to my former job. I am very grateful to my kind boss for making this happen so smoothly. The office is clean. My colleagues are nice and inviting as before. I was feeling rather like I could spread my wings. After a while, I found a nice apartment near the office and started living on my own. I told my best friend Gabby my gratitude, and then I would see her whenever I wanted to, and she was happy to send me off. Time flies. Recently, my boss and friends who knew my situation approached me about a blind date, which I appreciate, but I am busy with work right now. Although the memories have faded, I still sometimes remember the painful days with my ex-husband and mother-in-law. So I am thinking that until I can get my feelings in order, I am not to fall in love or get married for the time being. However, I have decided that I will not give up and will not forget to improve myself until I meet a wonderful match someday. Thank you for watching to the end. Please subscribe to our channel if you like. See you in the next video.